Artificial intelligence is transforming our world, and the race for domination has begun. From shaping the future of search engines to driving the next era of warfare, AI is fueling a new industrial revolution.
AI is becoming like the new paper. Everybody uses it for something.
In this video, we'll look at where the power lies. We'll assess the role of governments and big tech.
Right now, it's a big divide between the haves and have-nots.
The stakes of falling behind.
But for militaries, if they get this wrong, they could lose a war.
And the challenges of regulating an industry that is growing at mind-boggling speed.
I think a lot of people who are in position to make policy don't really understand the technology.
That's all coming up on Business Beyond. Let's get this out of the way first. There's no universal definition of artificial intelligence, but some experts say it's best described as a system that can take action on its own. Self-driving cars, high-frequency trading, and the personalized content that appears on your social media feeds are all examples of AI. As are recently launched language models like Microsoft-backed ChatGPT, Google's Bard, Baidu's Ernie, and Meta's Llama. We'll talk more about those in a moment, but first, let's follow the money. Since 2018, revenue from AI software has increased rapidly, with the market expected to be worth $126 billion by 2025. Venture capital investment in generative AI, the kind of systems that power those chatbots we just mentioned, has seen especially large growth. Over the past few months, generative AI has been grabbing the headlines. When OpenAI released ChatGPT, millions of people, including myself, were wowed by its linguistic abilities. But how big of a deal is it really? I asked AI researcher Melanie Mitchell.
I think it is a game changer. It's really enabled AI systems to generate language, to generate images, and soon to generate videos in a way that it's never been able to do before that really can be quite human-like.
The world of big tech took a similar view. All of a sudden, people were wondering if a ChatGPT-powered version of Microsoft's Bing could be about to topple Google's dominance in search. But this is about a whole lot more than a few tech companies trying to outdo each other. The way generative AI is integrated into our search engines will have a profound influence on how we access information, and by extension, on our understanding of the world.
It has big implications for who gets to decide what is the future of AI. One of the things that we've seen with large language models like ChatGPT is they have a lot of problems. They can generate text that's really impressive in many ways. It can be very convincing. It's very good quality text. But because it's trained on the data on the internet, the database of these AI models has all of the problems that exist in the text on the internet. So if prompted in the wrong way, these AI models can produce text that is hostile, toxic, or biased in difficult ways. The models themselves tend to make up facts or hallucinate things.
In some cases, things can get downright weird. In this exchange between Bing's AI model and a New York Times reporter, the chatbot appears to fall in love and tries to convince the reporter that he doesn't love his spouse.
They sound like humans. You ask them questions and they answer in a very articulate, fluent way. Sounds like you're talking to a human in some ways. And yet they don't have the understanding of the world that humans have that enables them to be robust and to tell the truth, to be able to tell truth from non-truth, from misinformation. And that's something that humans can do much better than machines at this point.
In recent years, the field of AI has moved away from being primarily an academic discipline. One big reason for that is funding. Developing a language model like ChatGPT takes years and relies on massive electricity-guzzling computing systems.
The reason why this very computationally intensive approach has effects on global power is that it's very expensive. It's very costly to assemble this kind of massive computing centers that are then used to train these machine learning models. And that's why it's large tech companies like Google and Microsoft that we're seeing releasing these early commercialized versions, for example, of large language models incorporated into their search functions like Google Search or Bing, rather than just any researcher able to do it.
So we've seen that big tech, with its deep pockets, holds a fair amount of power in the world of AI. But how does that translate into national prowess?
According to a ranking by Stanford University's Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence, the United States still leads the way in AI, but with China catching up quickly. The ranking took into account a wide range of factors, including journal publications, patent applications, private investment, and talent.
China has declared their intent to be the global leader in AI by 2030, by the end of this decade. And it's entirely possible that they are able to achieve that goal.
Part of that simply has to do with size. With a market of 1.4 billion people, Chinese companies have access to vast data sets, a key requirement in AI innovation. Take ride-hailing app Didi, for example. According to its own reports, the company receives 1,000 car requests every second and processes more than 70 terabytes of data every day. In a country where the government holds tight control of the tech sector, access to data on this scale has serious ramifications. A so-called social credit system has already been rolled out in parts of China. It involves gathering huge amounts of data about citizens' movements and habits, with the aim of either rewarding or punishing their behavior.
The government is building a massive surveillance system inside China. About half of the world's 1 billion surveillance cameras are inside China, and they're increasingly using AI tools like facial recognition or gait recognition to identify how people walk, or audio tools to do voice recognition to help monitor and control the population.
The Chinese government says monitoring of this kind has been effective in stopping the spread of COVID and in fighting crime. But critics say mass surveillance is also intended to suppress the Uyghurs, a mainly Muslim ethnic minority group living in the Xinjiang region in northwest China.
The ability to closely monitor a population is one example of an AI application with broad societal implications. But if we take the definition we mentioned at the beginning, a system that can take action on its own, there is perhaps no sector where the stakes of AI dominance are higher than in defense.
In 2017, in remarks that have taken on a new significance since his invasion of Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin said of AI, "Whoever becomes the leader in this sphere will be the ruler of the world." Experts say we're at the early stages when it comes to the use of AI in defense, describing the point we're at as analogous to how tanks and airplanes had an only marginal role in World War I, but by World War II had become a disruptive force.
Well, we're certainly seeing AI used on the battlefield in Ukraine in a number of areas. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's a game changer yet, in the sense that if we took away all of the artificial intelligence from the battlefield action in Ukraine, I don't think that materially changes things one way or the other for either side.
But that could change in the future. One concrete example of how AI is already being employed in Ukraine is in the use of drones fitted with machine learning-based image classifiers. The AI system analyzes the camera feed and assigns the probability, for example, of an object being a tank.
In Ukraine, we've seen some evidence of this online, and at least in one instance, there appears to be evidence that it was used in a lethal attack on a Russian tank. Based on the video that was released online, it looks like a human was still in the loop, if you will, for this decision, that a human was still authorizing the attack on the tank, and a human was choosing to then drop a munition to destroy this tank. But In the video, the AI identifies the object as a tank, and then a person pulls the trigger to attack the tank.
But humans are not always involved. According to a 2021 report from the UN Security Council, there's evidence that fully autonomous weapons were used by forces backed by the government in Tripoli in Libya's civil war. Countries the world over are taking note. In the UK, the House of Lords has recently launched an investigation into AI-powered weapons.
The growing relevance of AI in warfare has also shone a light on how international cooperation in research and development could threaten an individual country's national security.
Over 500 Chinese military scientists have actually come to the United States and studied here since 2006. So there's been certainly a pattern of cooperation that is deeper than the US government would like for political reasons.
But China has reason to worry too. US export restrictions on semiconductor chips, an essential component in AI research and development, have highlighted Beijing's heavy reliance on American technology.
China has a huge hardware gap. They are very behind in domestic production of chips. And China is a leading importer of chips globally because, of course, a lot of electronic equipment around the world is manufactured in China. It's assembled in China. But China doesn't have the domestic ability to produce the chips themselves.
Given the stakes involved, there's broad agreement that regulation is needed to ensure AI remains safe. But in an industry that's growing at breakneck speed, drafting it is no easy task.
We need AI developers that are sensitive to the ethical dimension of technology. And we also need consumers that are capable of using the technology in a right sense.
When it comes to regulating AI and the digital world more generally, the European Union is at the forefront. The EU AI Act, expected to go into force in 2024, attempts to categorize AI applications according to their risk status. Applications such as the social scoring system the Chinese government has introduced would be deemed an unacceptable risk and therefore banned. High-risk applications such as CV scanning tools or chatbots would be subject to certain legal requirements. Other applications like gaming would be left largely unregulated.
The US and Europe have very different sort of philosophical approaches when it comes to tech regulation. We certainly see with data regulation like the GDPR, as well as other areas like more broadly EU regulation on artificial intelligence, that the EU is leaning into regulating technology, whereas the United States has much more of a laissez-faire approach.
While the EU may be ahead in the area of regulation, there are a number of open questions, especially when it comes to how the law will be enforced. Researchers also point out that there's no way of knowing how public institutions are already using AI. Here's Leila Fetich describing the situation in Germany.
We know, for example, that Mannheim, a German city, is using face recognition software in order to help the police with being notified in certain high-risk alert situations. We know that this application isn't working with faces, but rather with very fast body movements. So this could be an example that showcases how face recognition, security issues, but also data protection issues come together.
Another ethical dimension to this story, and one which has to do with power too, concerns the people employed to train machine systems. OpenAI does not give information about how many people were used to train ChatGPT. So I asked AI researcher Melanie Mitchell for her best guess.
Yeah, that's hard to say, hundreds to thousands. There's human involvement at all different levels. There's the human involvement in figuring out what data to give the system to learn, what texts and so on. There's human involvement in training it to be kind of more conversational and to answer questions in a more human-like way. And then there's humans who try to prevent it from spewing out toxic language or other kinds of things that, the companies might not want it to say.
Since the release of ChatGPT, an investigation by Time magazine found that OpenAI used workers in Kenya to classify disturbing and illegal content, including descriptions of sexual violence. Employees reported receiving inadequate mental health support and earning less than $2 an hour.
I think it's pretty obviously morally problematic to outsource it to countries. I mean, I have no problem with outsourcing to countries that are they're making enormous quantities of money on the exchange rate locally. I only think that you need to treat those people like you would treat your people at home, and make sure that they have adequate health care, which again is presumably pretty low cost where they are.
In this video, we've looked at the rapid growth of the AI industry and at how the focus of power can shift between big tech companies, governments, and research institutions. But not everyone I spoke to agreed that framing the current status as a competition makes sense.
The narrative of a Cold War regarding AI is definitely harming to the discussion or the quality of discussion around algorithmic decision-making. So when I hear, let's say, that Europe needs to catch up Chinese or American position, the position regarding the use or development of AI, I see that we haven't really defined what the goal of this race would be.
Others believe that distinguishing between democratic and authoritarian regimes is essential in any new digital order.
I'd like to see the development of something like a Schengen area among AI scientists, making it easier for AI scientists to travel between, say, Europe, the United States, Australia, Japan, South Korea, and make it easier for them to move around, share information.
But one thing that blew my mind was when AI researcher Melanie Mitchell told me that no one actually understands how AI systems like ChatGPT actually work, or why they come up with the answers they do. I asked her to clarify if she really meant no one, not even the scientists who program them.
That's right. The systems are these very large computer programs that simulate sort of what are called neural networks, deep neural networks. And they have simulated neurons that have connections, that have weights, values, and they have something on the order of, billions to trillions of these weights. And that's just an unimaginable scale for humans to understand how they work, and kind of like the way we might try and understand our own brains, which we don't.
The spread of misinformation is frightening enough, but in other sectors, the threat of unrestrained AI could even be existential.
I think probably the people that are going to be most successful in the AI revolution are those who find ways to use these technologies to be more productive or be more competitive in the workplace. But for militaries, if they get this wrong, they could lose a war. Their country could, lose power on the global stage. They could be overtaken by a rival. They could be invaded.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Business Beyond. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, so do leave us a comment. And if you like what you see here, you can always subscribe to the Business Beyond playlist. A good place to start would be our recent video looking at whether the dollar will maintain its position of global dominance. From me and the team, it's goodbye and take care.